right, good afternoon or good evening to everyone. We thank you so much for joining us and checking us out. Happy Wednesday! We do hope that today finds you well and everyone had a good day. I am in Maryland and the sun is shining not only on the outside but on the inside as well. Thank you for tuning in to Inside with Dr. Scott. Today we have some amazing panelists. I mean, amazing. And I'm so excited. I've known these panelists for all of them for over 10 years, one for over 20. And so I just can't wait to tune in to all the good stuff. So get a little closer, get something to drink, and join us. Before we get started, just want to share, I am Dr. Quinyon Scott. And today our panelists will have a discussion specifically based on education and the current state of education. We'll evaluate and see perspectives and values between research, and we'll all have areas of expertise that we will share. Today's discussion is not reflective of any participant's workplace, higher education institution, or does it constitute any way of employment. Please, all of potential disruptions that may occur, please just be mindful that we are live and we want to make the best of the hour that we have together. I'll take a moment for the panelists to begin and just give a 30-minute blurb, and we will start with Mrs. Drew.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Drew. I am a 6th through 8 middle grades educator for social studies and social justice, and I have about 14 years of experience in education.
Mr. Blyden.
Hello, I'm Vancito Blyden. I'm currently a teacher leader in New York City, particularly the Bronx. I've been teaching for 7 years. I've taught in Charlotte Mecklenburg schools, in New York. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott, for having me today.
Yes, thank you so much. And then Dr. Gregory.
Hi guys, I'm Dr. Shalonda Gregory. I am an assistant principal at a middle school in Kentucky. I do have experience from Washington, D.C., and this is my, I think, 17th year in education. So I'm super excited to be a part of this panel. Thank you, Dr. Scott.
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. I do have a caveat really quick. So Dr. Gregory and I were in New Leaders. I was working on my doctorate, but I had stalled. She had her doctorate, and she's like Dr. Gregory, and you see her now, she's super fly and just doesn't really care, right? She just is just out of the box. And I was like, okay, so I have to publicly thank you, because I just kept saying like, okay, keep pushing, Quinyon, like Dr. Gregory. And what happens is that when you see somebody else, it really provides encouragement for you to get those accomplishments. So I just want to say thank you. I've been watching.
Oh my goodness.
And I absolutely appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, our country just experienced some horrible news. I would indeed say tragic news regarding Breona Taylor. I know that you are in Louisville. Please share, Dr. Gregory, your thoughts about what do you believe how this will impact our country?
Well, I will first start off by saying that we are not okay in Louisville, Kentucky. Protesters are out right now. I'm usually a part of that, but this is very important to me. I'm very passionate about education. So I wanted to definitely be here with you today. So first of all, please send us all the prayers that you guys can send. This is huge for a variety of reasons. As Breonna's mom has said multiple times, it has become bigger than Breonna, because we're trying to, send a message, one, that Black women matter, her life mattered, and that we all need to have these conversations. So I feel like the impact will be that now we're having more conversations about race. I think we just have a history in America of just kind of suppressing that and not really being honest about our past and what has been done to African Americans. And I think the recent events have forced not only people within those communities to have that conversation, but communities across America, across the world. It's a global thing that we're experiencing. And I'm hoping my hope is that the impact is that not only do we have these conversations, but we get some legislation changed, because that is what's going to change the system. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, unfortunately, and we're the ones that are losing. So that's my hope. I know that students here have definitely been impacted, because if they're not being a part of the protest, because we have a lot of youth here that they're using their voice, which blesses my soul in so many ways, especially as an educator, to see students, former students out there, you know, also lifting their voice for this very important cause. So they definitely have some feelings about it. And if they're not doing it, their parents are doing it, their aunties are doing it, cousins are doing it. So they're very aware. And we have to be cognizant of that and allow space for conversations to be had about how they're feeling.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to piggyback off of the impact of those police officers not being convicted?
I want to say that this is a continuation of what has always been going on. And if you look at the history of policing in this country, it was always to police Black people, Black bodies. And it just perpetuates. The system needs to be dismantled. It has to be dismantled in order to protect Black bodies. You know, there's so many people out there who say that they care about life. They care about it in the womb, but they don't care about it to the tomb. And that's problematic. You can't be pro-life and not care about these Black people that we out here dying. You can't, there's no way in the world you can be pro-life and you don't care and you don't feel something about this loss. There's so much of it. Who are we going to continue to protect? Are we going to protect our citizens, the people, the tax-paying citizens of this country? Or are we going to continue to allow this inequality, this injustice to continue? History has shown, anytime things like this continue to happen, people get tired. And the result is civil war. Is that where we want to go with this?
Like, I would like to add, just like, one, if you're on this call and you aren't registered to vote, go out and register to vote, like ASAP, please, because every vote counts, particularly this year. And I think with all of these events that are happening, it's really pushed our nation, particularly like we're all educators here, it's pushed like our role as educators to really push us to do the work. Like, if you haven't done the work now, like, you need to do it. And you need to really examine like your teaching practices and think about like, what ways have you perpetuated what's happening in our world? And what are you doing with kids, particularly Black and brown kids, that like deconstructs the narratives that they see on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, Mrs. Drew, as a historian, right? How do you convey to your parents, to the community, the importance of this time without crossing the line?
Honesty and truth. You can't argue data. The statistics are there. The facts are there. You can't argue with what happened. But the problem is that a lot of people don't want to know. They want to whitewash our history and act as if America is just the land of freedom for all. And it has not been the case. So the important part is to decolonize our classrooms and to stop whitewashing our history and to tell the good, bad, and the ugly and allow students to come up and draw their own conclusions. And I think that's very important, to put the truth out there. And what our current president right now is trying to do is block things like the 1619 Project and want to promote this America the Beautiful, you know, type whitewash history. And that just cannot be. It cannot be. We have to teach the truth. We have to teach it unadulterated and let people draw their own conclusions.
Yeah, I completely agree. Dr. Gregory, I would imagine that your constituents are hurting right now. You talked about, you know, the importance of praying for your city. Talk about, in this moment of urgency, what do you believe some of the things that school leaders can do to help support what's going on politically?
Honestly, I had this conversation earlier with one of my friends, and I think the most important thing that we can do, one, is create the space for the conversation. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, where I'm currently living, we're not having those conversations. Like, the space is not being given for that. You know, there will probably be a letter that is sent out, right, to the staff of, you know, of our large school district to say, you know, hey guys, this is kind of like what's going on. This is our sentiment. But as far as like really allowing staff to voice how they feel and how it's impacting them and how it may be impacting students, and then what are going to be our next steps moving forward, those conversations are not really being had. And I feel like some of that is because they're fearful. Like, what if I do that? Like, am I going to be penalized, you know, by my boss for doing that? Because they want to make sure they keep things separate. Like, you know, we're not involving politics into school. But how can you not? You know, the city is not literally on fire, but it's on fire. And we need to discuss it. So we need to have some space for that. And then we need to be supportive of not the staff that are a part of the work, right? So in my school district, we're praised for having this racial equity report card. That's a big deal because a lot of school districts across the nation do not have that. And it's fine and dandy, but now that we have this policy, right, that says that we're going to do these things, and we have a metric, a rubric to that's going to measure and guide us and to ensure that we're doing the work, let's really do the work. Let's ensure that we are being equitable. You know, not only in the classroom, but, you know, at the district level, when we're hiring people, that we're hiring people that look like people that reflect our students. So it's not just so much about having the conversation, but also doing the work. We have to be a part of the work, because I don't see schools as separate entities outside of the community. I feel like the school is the community. So you have to be active and engaged in the community. You can't pick and choose what you're going to choose to engage in, right? Because if they're like, this month is Hispanic Awareness Month or Hispanic Month, and we had a whole parade here, right? We should, and most of the time when things like that happen, we're a part of that. The schools get involved, you know, we send a little representative down there to, you know, have a booth or what have you. Then why aren't we doing this now? Is it because this is really dealing with a real sensitive topic of race? And it's you know, definite something that's happening in our community right now. So we want to kind of stand hands off because we don't want to upset people. We can't be worried about what other people think. We have to do what's best for our students, our staff, period, because we are the community.
So I'm on the edge of my seat, right? So I have prepared these questions. I want to ask you these educational questions, but this is just so rich. And I think that like the time is now. So just indulge me for about 10 more minutes. Mr. Bladden, I want to ask you, like, as a Black man, right? So the Black Lives Matter movement has pretty much been about the angst of Black men. And then we have about 3 or 4 Black women whose name have been up, that's been newsworthy. But it's really been about the plight of the Black man. So as a Black man, right, give your voice to the conversation of how do you feel about what's going on and how it impacts your students and this impact now that's happened to a Black woman.
I think this time now, it's pushed me as a leader to make sure that I have the conversation and I push the conversations with staff. In New York City, like we've just started the school year of virtual learning. We've had all of our scheduled professional developments. There's always that one professional development or second professional development about race. And
DEI.
like, and it is always like higher leadership giving PowerPoints just to give to staff. But as a leader, you gotta read the room and push the conversations. You also have to think about like, how are you making people that don't look like me do the work? Check the stereotypes. I also think about me as a Black man. I've always said this, I won't be here if it wasn't for Black women. So as a Black man, I have to be super vocal about not only Black men, but also the Black women that are constantly been the foundation of our communities, of our families, of our schools, of our students. I always have to talk about that. And I have to publicly talk about that because me being a Black man, I hold privilege.
So, okay, one more question, and then I promise I'm gonna let this go.
Mignon, I did wanna say something,
Please.
you know, about what Mr. Blyden said. He is absolutely right, and we have to push the issue to have these conversations. So I know at my school a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what, we need a social justice elective. We need some type of social justice education in school. So I went to my administrators, and they were open. They were open. They were so open, they even went to training with me, and they formed an equity team with me. So we prepared, I designed a curriculum and we implemented it. It was co-taught with a Native American social worker that we had, and we had some pushback, but our administrators were like, this is necessary. This needs to happen. These conversations need to be had. So we have got to start pushing this message to our administrators that we got to stand up. And even when parents push back, we got to say this is important because all of our students matter. We have to handle these issues. We got to deal with them because we got one segment of our school population that's being traumatized constantly over and over again. So I had another teacher who's from Australia. I love him to death. He was like, listen, I'm concerned about what's going on with our students. We need to have a race summit. So the whole equity team came together and we produced a race summit that we had, and we even allowed parents to get involved. See, that's the other portion of this. We got to work together as a community to fix this problem. We have to educate the entire community. So if we do these things, we've learned so much as being in this COVID age and how we can communicate effectively virtually, and we can get more people involved. So we had parents chiming in to this. We did it just like this. We did a Zoom. We had the kids speaking out, and we basically let them lead the conversation. And we waited to the last one to allow a speaker on white ideology to come in and speak to white people about white privilege. She didn't really want to call it white privilege because, you know, when you think about privilege, poor white people don't think that they privileged, even though they are, you know. But the way she broke it down was in a manner, if I said the same thing, it would not come across the same way. So exactly like Mr. Blyden said, we have got to have our white counterparts not be our allies, but they need to be on the forefront because racism is a white person's problem. It's white people problem. They have to fix it. We cannot, if we could have fixed it, we would have fixed it a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. So anyone can feel free to chime in. So we talked about school as the community. And, you know, ideally, years ago, specifically in the Black community, it was school and churches, and they were at the forefront of ensuring the love, the safety for all members of the Black community. And then over time, that has drastically changed. Do you have a why that it's changed? And do you think that we as a community, through protesting, advocacy, we can go back to the church and the school having a paramount voice in the community?
Just having this conversation. Churches have taken on this conservative mindset that you're not saved unless you are Republican. And with that ideology, they've justified in their minds the treatment of other people. And with us trying to, go to church the way heaven would look, a lot of us are going to multiracial I wouldn't say multicultural, but multiracial churches. And we're sitting under these, and I'm not going to say it's just white pastors, but black pastors as well, are like, they're pounding this message that the topics that matter the most are abortion and gay rights, or, you know, not having them. So because they are pushing that agenda, everything else is becoming secondary. And we do have a lot in the Black community that are following along with that. And because those two topics are the top of their, I guess you would say, priority, everything else is falling by the wayside. Justice, all the scriptures in the Bible about justice and poor people and the widow, all of that stuff is going out the window because those two topics matter more than anything. So because of that, we do have a split in the church. And with this new doctrine, this political doctrine that they are following, it's caused a division. You know, I've been suggesting that a lot of people listen to this audio lecture called The Color of Compromise by Jameer Tisby. And he explains it to a T as to what is happening, what has been happening, and what continues to happen in the church concerning our nation.
And I will agree with you on that, especially because here we have a lot of churches that are very vocal, especially about education. So they will have news conferences and will talk about all the things that are going on in education that's wrong, right? Oops, sorry.
Mr. Biden, did you want to add anything to what Mrs. Drew said?
Yes, I can add some things. Like, I always think about the amount of when kids come to buildings, when families come to our school buildings, in our churches, how much trauma they come with, and it's because of these entities that they've had these traumatic experiences. Like, I do think schools and churches are able to make that shift, but in order to make the shift, we have to open our doors as a place that we're welcome to everyone. Everyone, regardless of color, race, sexuality. Like, we're here to serve you. And once schools, churches, and the individuals that work in these systems and spaces understand that, we can make that shift.
Yeah. Dr. Gregory?
I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, no problem.
Yes, I'm back. I had tech issue. So I was saying that, I mean, they'll be vocal about that, however, but they won't be vocal about the things that matter, such as like race, like what's going on currently, right? Because they don't want to upset the people that are feeding their pockets, because it's also attached to money. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest driver, right? Because they want that Republican dollar, because that's what's helping to build the life centers and the other fantastic things, because we're in the age of mega churches, and we have several in the city that I currently live in, and they don't want to upset the people that are feeding their pockets, but at the same time, you're serving the community. But are you really? And when you push back and say, well, okay, that's fine, you can complain about the education system, but when's the last time did you come and volunteer? Because I haven't seen you do a read-in or anything. I mean, do you offer tutoring to the students that are in your community? Because we have one of the mega churches here lives, it's housed in one of the poorest communities in the city. And they have done nothing to contribute to education system, but have all the commentary about it. No sir and no ma'am. And so it's just, I think it's a lot of what Ms. Drew has pointed out, and more so, you know, they want to keep that money flowing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Money plays a huge role. And I also think this idea of most members that go to a mega church, at least in Maryland, specifically in Baltimore, I'm thinking about the mega churches, most of those parishioners don't live in the city. So they cannot connect to city finances, city problems, city trauma because they go back to their suburban homes and the only time they come into the city is on Sunday. And if you think about now that church is virtual, there's a lot of things you can forget about when you're in your suburban home and you don't have to see the plight of, so for example, we have a huge trash problem in Baltimore City where they haven't been picking up trash. So of course, the lack of picking up trash, you have an increase of rodents. So on the news, they've been showing large rats just with piles of trash because the city isn't doing what they're supposed to do to get the trash off the street. And of course, everything is blamed on COVID. So with that in mind, it's a disconnect. Right, your only connection to the city is the church, but your life, you're disconnected to the problems specifically that are really going on in the inner city. I know I said last question, but I'm thinking, right, so we're professionals, and oftentimes when you are professional, you do transition, right? You leave the city, your friends are not necessarily connected to the root and the problems. What do you believe as professionals, as educators, it's our responsibility to do to bring awareness to such problems?
I think we should definitely be vocal. You know, use our social media, use our voice, you know, participate in things like what we're doing tonight to bring awareness to what's going on. And one thing I found is that people can't argue with your personal story. You know, so if somebody say, hey, why is Black Lives Matter an issue or an issue for you? Or, you know, why should racism end? That's a question that's commonly asked. Why should racism end? Because I have a Black son and I have a Black husband. I have a Black brother and father and brothers. And I don't want them to die out there on that street just for being Black. So people can't argue with things like that. But we have got to have these conversations. But the weight of this problem should not be on Black people. White people, they need to engage in these conversations. And they need to come to listen. Not to do most of the talking, to prove to us why we so wrong, but they need to listen. Because this is not a new problem. Even though they may live in a bubble, this problem exists. And whether or not they believe it or not, it is going to fall on their front doors sooner or later.
Or it already has.
It has.
Oh, yeah. And save the apology, because a lot of times they'll come with the apologies. Like, I'm so sorry that you guys are going through that. You can keep your apology. What I want you to do, though, is use your privilege to help get some of these laws changed.
That's right.
And then also,
that's what I need.
And then, like, also using our classrooms, our schools as spaces to empower students, so that they're informed on these issues, and they can be able to think about these issues on their own, so that they can go in their communities and make the changes and inform their families, and so that they can make the impact and the changes in the future.
Yeah, this is good. Absolutely. All right. So this time for real, we're going to transition into some of the questions. Let me give you the first question. Feel free. Anyone can jump in. All can answer. One can answer. It's completely up to you. I want to make sure that this platform is for your voices. How has COVID impacted the standard of the educational environment for you? And I'm thinking about day-to-day operations. What's currently going on?
I will say, starting the school year is for those that are administrators, right? Starting the school year, getting the school ready to open, that opening prep, is crazy in itself when we're brick and mortar, right? So trying to prepare for the opening of a school virtually, I mean, it is a complete mind shift. Because you can't do the things that you would typically do to get your school open. Now we have to think about how we're going to do this distance learning, because let's be honest, this is new to all of us. I mean, there's not an administrator that can say, hey, yeah, I've done this before, so let me tell you how we did it. No, no one's done it. So we're all trying to build this plane as they're like, put it in the air, it's ready. no, it's not quite ready, but we're going to put it in there anyways. So trying to navigate which platform to use, how to set the schedule, how to communicate things to parents, students, to staff, how to prepare staff for it. It was a complete game changer. And just trying to get everybody, I guess, trying to make everybody feel good, because what we're also not really focusing on is that we're in the middle of a pandemic. And that alone is stressful enough. So now we've added on the start of school and how to do school virtually and how to keep kids safe, because we know that we have hackers. Sometimes there are other students that are in school that like jump in your classroom. So trying to, keep the integrity of the classroom as to what it needs to be, and to try to keep it also somewhat stress-free. I mean, it's school, so it's going to have stress, but try not to add added stress to the students, because I know one thing that we really talked about at our meetings preparing for the school year is being mindful not to press the students about having their cameras on, because one thing that we know is, especially for our demographics, not all of our students are proud of where they live, or their living situation. So they may not want to have their camera on. So we have to be mindful of that. So those were all the things that we had to think through and come up with a system and a structure for, while trying to figure out how to open the school year virtually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to piggyback off of what Dr. Gregory said, I was really concerned about their social emotional health, because a lot of kids have been isolated since March. I have some kids who are on the scale of, I'm scared to see anyone outside of my house, to I'm dying to see everybody out of my house. So, trying to meet the needs of those students is a balancing act. So you got some kids who like, okay, I need to be alone. I'd rather work alone. And then you got some kids that's like, I'm dying for some type of interaction. So making sure that they have activities and assignments that can be inclusive, but also be respectful of how they're feeling, right? So if they want to work in a group, making sure that they can use the technology in order to meet together. Or if those kids who prefer to work independently, making sure that my assignments are flexible. So, even with the beginning of the school year, it was like Dr. Gregory says, it was a new adventure. So we were, just trying to figure out how to meet the needs of the kids, the teachers, as well. Everybody got different things going on. You have some people who have been affected directly by COVID versus some who have not, families who haven't. So just trying to navigate that has been a challenge. I will tell you that the way we started, because we started in early August, the way we started is not the way we're finishing. So we've had to be flexible. We've had to adjust. Okay, if we're going to do synchronous learning and asynchronous learning, we're going to do it, an hour a week or whatever. We found that, okay, that's not enough for some kids. Some kids, we need to meet more. They need more of a structured schedule. So we have had to be flexible in these times as well. It's been very important. And also being willing to sit down and meet with parents and families to find out, okay, what is your need? How can we help you? Because it also gets your mind off of what your need is at the time. So how can we help you? How can we, be of service to make this the best possible situation that we can. So everybody's had to put their heads together to try to make this work, and be flexible, be willing to change, and not be stubborn and, oh, this is the way I've always done things. This is not the time for that. But it's also challenge us teachers to take our lessons and our methods of educating to a whole nother level.
Absolutely.
It's like, wow, I didn't realize I had this in me. I could do this. Look at how I'm doing this. So it's also been an opportunity for us as educators to expand and to really figure out what we are capable of. So, I'm always, the cup is half full. Let's figure out what we can do. What's good about it. Yep, my dog.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Ms. Drew. I think the social emotional awareness for our families, our scholars, particularly our teachers, I had to really think about during the summer. Like, how do we get teachers excited about teaching in their homes kids every day? Like, that's big. And the beginning of the school year is stressful for administrators, for families, for teachers in general. And I also, like, I agree with you. There's a lot of positive that have come out of this pandemic and COVID. I think a lot of teachers in my building have really thought about how can they teach in a new way, differently than before. It's also pushed veteran teachers to come up to hone their craft, use more technology, become more become more excited about the kids' lives. Yeah, so I just think beginning of the school year, really thinking about the social emotional awareness of the people in the building, and then also as administrators, we didn't have a roadmap. There was no roadmap at all. And I don't know about y'all, but I felt like there were so many different changes day by day, and you had to adjust. So I think the biggest teacher skill that we all know is that as a teacher, you constantly are adjusting. And I definitely had to put my teacher hat on when I was an administrator this summer.
And I just want to say thank you to all the teachers, because I will say, I try to get in classrooms at least 5 to 6, sometimes 7 classrooms a day. I'll pop in and, kind of see what's going on. And every now and then I'll participate in class, kids like that. But these teachers, these teachers are killing it. I mean, some of the things they're doing, I'm like, girl, I see what you did there. This interactive slideshow you got going, I love it. Can you do this when we go back? Kind of. But I definitely want to shout out all the teachers, because a lot of you are doing a phenomenal job. And especially the ones that have kids at home. So you've got to get them set up and going. You're the tech-ish, you're the tech person, you're the everything person, you're the lunch lady. I cannot give enough kudos and praise to what the teachers are doing, because I'm a single mom, but my kid is in college. Thank the Lord. And I could imagine if I had little small ones at home trying to manage their school and manage my school as well. So I just wanted to say that I think that, what teachers are doing, you guys are crushing the game. So if no one else tells you today that they love you, they appreciate you, and that you're crushing it, I'm telling you, sis and bro, keep going. You're doing a good job. And also the administrators are doing a good job, but the teachers are really in there doing that. They're on the front lines.
Yes, that's good. Absolutely. Good job. Because you just imagine one day, literally, we woke up and it was like, poof, and it was different. I can remember we left work March 13th of last year, or no, this year, which seems like last school year. And we were just anticipating oh, we'll be off a week. We might get 2 weeks. This is like snow days. And then never would have thought, right, that here it is months later and we're still fighting this pandemic. Many of us have had students and families that have suffered from COVID-19 and have impacted them financially, social, emotionally. I'm thinking about the news stories of the long line of the long lines where families were in line to the food bank. And just people that I know in general that are hurting. Does anyone have any strategies or support that their schools, or they know of a school system that's helping families?
I would say in our school system, every student was given a lunch card, and they really didn't have those in a brick and mortar. We didn't have those. You just gave the lunch lady your lunch number. And so what they're trying to do, and we did this during the summer even, they made sure that kids could still get food, and they also provided food, because we have this program called Blessing in the Backpack. And so they continue that. Even during COVID, we've made an intentional effort to ensure our families are being fed. And so I felt like that is one great thing that I feel like my district is doing a great job of doing, is making sure. And we have what we call youth service coordinators and family resource coordinators. And what they do is to help make sure that the family's needs are being met. So like at my school, our family resource coordinator, he and she, because we have two, they reach out and make contacts with the families to make sure, you know, that they're good, and if they need anything, to connect them with resources. So, I mean, that is an intentional effort that's made daily.
Very good.
See, I'm muted. At my school, we did something very similar where we had backpack buddies. We expanded backpack buddies and to include other meal, you know, supplies for our students as well. That was one of my big concerns, was for our students who had food insecurities. And the other one was the socio-emotional health, our students who suffer from mental health issues and really rely on our school social worker and our school counselors and things of that nature. So, but they really did put forth the effort. Every time I go to the school, you know, our tables are full of food that they are providing, and also help in other ways as well. Our school social worker and our school counselor were phenomenal in making sure that our families' needs were met to the best of their ability. Now, of course, you know, I'm at a charter school, so our community was very small. So we were able to do more, and we had other families who were also willing to donate and help families that were in need. So, you know, so far as for the school district that I live in, they also provided food. You know, they would give out several meals a day, and if they were going to be closed, they would make sure that families had that available. But also, they took it a step further and made sure that the buses were equipped with Wi-Fi for those students who didn't have Wi-Fi. You know, one thing we don't think about is the infrastructure and the inequalities that it causes for our students of color, you know, and our poor and our socioeconomic challenged students as well, that everybody doesn't have access to internet. So that would definitely affect their learning. So, you know, providing hotspots and things of that nature to make sure that learning could continue. All of those things matter. But, you know, it really, what COVID has really done is really pulled the blinders off of the inequities that our citizens in every city, every town faces.
I agree 100%. So as you're thinking about that, ultimately we are going to go back into the school building, to the brick and mortar, what are the focuses that you believe is needed in order for us to make the transition from virtual back to the brick and mortar? Go ahead, Mr. Biden, take it. Biden, sorry.
I'm thinking, I think instilling strong, like, social emotional regulation right now is key. Going back to school will bring and can bring trauma and anxiety to families. So having a big, strong foundation in classroom culture, knowing your families, doing virtual learning, doing home visits, getting to know them one-on-one, not only because you teach their scholar, just because you care about them as a person. And like them, you are also going through. So showing that empathy. I think, like, academically, making sure you're having strong, like, virtual academic habits, strong virtual routines, because the future, we cannot see the future. We're supposed to go to school, but we don't know what might happen. We might be in this virtual space for a while. So doing everything possible to make sure that the foundation is there, because we don't know what the future holds.
And I totally agree with you, Mr. Biden. I have one of my teachers, she does an excellent job of instilling her routines and procedures. I mean, the same ones that she have in her classroom, because it's a teacher that I observed last year when we were in brick and mortar. She has those same exact routines and procedures going on right now in her virtual classroom. And she reminds them, remember, when we come back to school, this is what we're going to do. And so I think it helps set the students up for success, because they're very clear about what her expectations are. So the more that we can do that to set strong foundations, structures, and systems in place that will be carried over to the school, I think that's the best road to take.
And that's what we were discussing, since we're getting ready to transition back to school. Along with what Dr. Gregory said, we have got to set those things in motion now, what the expectations are, routines, standardized routines for our kids. But I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of the ways that I used to do things, I don't think I'm going back. I think, I'm going to continue with the way that we have been doing things virtually, but in the classroom, because it's been so effective that, had we not had this, I probably wouldn't have known that this was effective. So if our students can't get together, if they need more time, they can, learning how to meet virtually, doing what adults do. We have to figure it out. Those type things, the way that lessons are implemented, where I can use my time in class wisely, flip classrooms type situations. I mean, using methods that, some of us direct teachers wouldn't, have really used before. But one thing that I did continue was I'm at a project-based learning school. So I just continued that, even when we got out of school, my kids knew the routine, they knew how it worked, and I wanted to continue it. So I started the school year out with that as well, making sure that when we transition back to the classroom, they understand this is the procedures, this is how we do things. These are the steps that we take. So, just maintaining that. Kids like structure. Structure shows love. So whenever you continue your structure, as a teacher, whether you are virtual or whether you are in person, it really shouldn't matter, because those kids know those routines and they got it. And that's where they thrive the most.
Yeah, I love the PBL curriculum.
Me too.
I think it's
Me too.
definitely something that more school districts should tap into. So it warms my heart to hear you say you are a PBL school. So when you think about the transition and you think about that parents and students may have some concerns. I heard Mr. Blyden say like the social emotional. What are some apprehensions that are keeping you up at night? Some things that you're like, we got to get this together in order for us to go back.
For me, it's the well-being of the staff, because, I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and it's a stressful time. And I feel like it's kind of like what football players say, like when you look good, you play good, because all it equates to is that you just feel good about yourself, And so I think as administrators, we have to be very mindful of that, because I know that what I personally want, I want my teachers to show up and be their best selves. So in order to do that, though, you have to address the social emotional part of that. And you have to be empathetic. You have to be flexible. You have to show grace. Like, those things just need to happen. And so we just cannot forget that. And I'm constantly thinking, like, how can I make things a little bit more efficient for them? How can I make things a little bit more easier for them? Because I am a team kind of oriented person. It's we, us, ours together. There is no I, me, my, mines. So that is the thing that keeps me up at night. How can I make this a little bit better for my teachers? Because I want them to feel good, because I know they're working hard. They're working very hard. But I'm always talking and preaching to them about we got to work smarter. And so it doesn't mean that we need to do more of something. We just need to be more efficient at doing the things that we're doing well. So that's what keeps me up at night. And that's what I'm preparing for, looking forward to the future. I want to make sure that we're going to be able to set them up for success.
Good.
I also think about and hope that my internet doesn't shut down at night, and pray that it doesn't happen in the morning, because if it does, all classes are probably canceled. But something that I always think about is, because this is so new to all of us, what are the holes in the plan? And what have I done to support teachers in speaking up when they see holes, or if they would recommend us doing something a different, more efficient or better way.
Yeah.
So how am I pushing teachers to have a voice, and also talk about how to let them know that their voice matters, particularly during this time, and also families. How do I make sure families have a copy of our plan and are able to like have a conversation with me? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? I would recommend doing this because the families that I'm talking to are thinking this way.
Do you have any examples of which strategies may be available for either students, parents, or teachers to make their voice available? Oftentimes we say, like, we want you to have a voice, but we don't provide an avenue for you to have that voice.
Mm-hmm.
So at my school, I would say they are professional survey makers. I'm telling you, they send out a survey for everything. And it helps because it really makes you think about the questions, and it gives everybody an opportunity. Now, does everybody participate? No, but you had the opportunity. So I think surveys work really well. Getting, because where people won't actually call you on the phone, they may take the time to do it on do it on a computer or even do it on their phones. So I think that's a very effective way. And also having sessions where you have parents that what you call those things, groups. Say it again. Focus groups. There you go. Focus groups. Things like that where especially now that we can meet so conveniently via virtual. Focus groups helps as well. Asking parents to volunteer for a panel, things like that. But I'm telling you, we are survey monkeyed and Google survey to death. And I appreciate it because whenever I do my evaluation and they say, have you had, or the teacher, the administrators, the school evaluation, have you had input on the decisions in your school? It's up to me whether I have it or not, because they sent me out a survey and they asked my opinion. The question is, did I answer it? And did I answer it truthfully? So I think those are good ways. And, as a teacher, that's how they get my attention. Now, they may have to send me a reminder to complete it in the midst of everything I got going on. But you send me that reminder, and, if I didn't do it the first time, I'm going to do it because I want my voice to be heard. And then making parents feel, in that message, we need your opinion. We need to know how this affects your family. So, a lot of times when you make it personal for them, then they feel like they got some input on what's going on. So.
Mr. Blatton, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Surveys help. My staff, my team, we've done virtual home visits, and we've done virtual home visits with the lens of we're listening. We're not talking about supplies. We're not talking about the schedule. If they have questions about it, we do, but we are in the lens of just listening about your concerns, your issues. What are you thinking right now? I also think as a leader, we also have to lead with the lens of right now, I don't know, I need your help. And I think when you lead that way, family, staff will open up to you and provide those suggestions. So I have no clue how to lead a virtual school. I have no clue how to lead dismissal or arrival where kids are 6 feet apart and they have to wear a mask. What is your suggestion? What do you think about it? Could you help me with this?
I love that. That's good. I'm putting that in my pocket for later. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's so good. I was just thinking about the vulnerability of the school leader. As a school leader, you have to be Superwoman, Superman, everything. And so to be vulnerable to say, I don't know, and I need your help is a different layer. And I think it's also a risk, because when you have parents that say, well, if you don't know, I don't know, but you should know. And so opening yourself to the positivity of saying you don't know, but also opening yourself up to the negativity of parents not trusting you because you don't know.
And that's a good point. That's a very good point. And I think that it's a risk worth taking, because I actually read a book called, I think it's Dare to Lead by Breona Taylor. And one of the things she talks about is vulnerability. And the thing that is cool about vulnerability is that to be vulnerable, you have to have courage, right? Because you got to have some courage to say, hey, I don't know everything, right? So I need your help. That's a huge, very brave thing that you can do. But I think it's necessary, because I think oftentimes you will find that people kind of take that as like, okay, now I get to be of service to you. Absolutely. You're always going to have a few that are kind of like, oh, she don't know what she's doing because she asked me for my help, right? But you're going to have more people that are going to give you that help because you asked.
And then they feel part of the community.
They absolutely
really do.
feel part of
Because, you know, a lot of times as a parent, you can feel isolated from your school, your child's school community. But when things like that, and you feel like you have a part in the decision making, or you can influence, you know, the things that are happening at your child's school, you know, people tend to feel more comfortable, and then they want to participate in what goes on there more.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sorry, Mr. Blind, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, it also shows that at the center of it all, you really care about their child and their family. To say that I really don't know, I need your help, I need your suggestions, mean that this administrator is putting the health and the welfare of my child above them faking it. Like, that means a lot.
I agree. We have 3 minutes left. I don't want this to end. I just can't, time just gone by so fast. In the 3 minutes, I want you to share your recommendations for, and you can pick any stakeholders or a multitude, parents, students, of sending them encouragement. As Dr. Gregory said, we are in a pandemic. We've all talked about social emotional, but this is just a very difficult time for our country. And so please take a moment to extend the olive branch, share gifts of wisdom or love to our audience as we conclude our last 3 minutes. And we'll start with you, Mrs. Drew.
So I guess I would like to say, start with what I tell my students every day. You know, Ms. Drew might not know everything about you, but I love you. I love you because I choose to love you. And because I love you, I care about what goes on with you. So my idea is that I love you, you love me, and then we'll all be happy. Because when I love you, I put your needs before mine. And when you love me, you put my needs before yours. And when that happens, we can really build community and we can have unity. Because right now, that's not what's happening. And that's what we got to push. We got to push love. Love should win. Let love win.
Yes, that's good. That was our theme last year, love and accountability. Mr. Blyden?
I really want to push our parents and our families. Right now, I cannot imagine having one child doing virtual learning at my house. I have some families that have 10 children with devices learning, but they're doing everything possible to make it happen for their child because they believe in their child's future. So I just want to encourage families, keep going, keep pushing. What you're doing right now is very important work. We love you. If there's anything that we can do as administrators, teachers to support you, always shoot your school a text, email, or a phone call.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Gregory?
I am on the grace bus. That's the bus that I'm on right now, the whole grace and positive energy bus. So what I would like to push out is that all of us need to show a little grace. So I am very appreciative of every parent that is managing their kids at home and ensuring that they're logging in and getting their work done and working their jobs, because a lot of our parents are still working. I know the teachers are working really hard, the administrators, everyone is working hard, clerks, anybody that's involved in this educational process. We're all working really, really hard. So with that in mind, when something doesn't go as planned, whether it be the teacher didn't respond back to your email as quick as possible, or text message, or we're having tech issues, and a child was late getting into the classroom. Maybe the teacher didn't meet a deadline that the administrator set. Administrators are not clearly communicating things to make things more efficient. We all have to show grace because we're human. We're not perfect. I operate from the glass is half full also. So I like to believe that everyone has the best intentions, right? I believe parents have the best intentions. They want their child to have the best. They want them to be successful. I feel like teachers have the same intention as well as administrators, but there are things that happen, small roadblocks. Sometimes they're big roadblocks. But we have to show grace when those things happen. And so that's what I just want everybody to be more mindful of, is to show a little grace. Show a little grace. We all, and that comes with, being loving. So I totally agree with everybody else, though. That's my piece.
So thank you everyone again for joining us. What a rich hour it has been. I definitely appreciate everyone signing on.